We have been given the scientific knowledge, the technical ability, and the materials to pursue the exploration of the universe. To ignore these great resources would be a corruption of a God-given ability.
Hi, my name is Dana Clark, and today I'll be diving into SpaceX's Starship and Super Heavy launch vehicle, discussing the challenges that they're going to need to overcome before they're able to fulfill their contract to NASA and take humanity back to the lunar surface. So, let's get started by introducing Starship and Super Heavy. This is in theory a fully reusable system designed to transport 100 tons of cargo and crew to low Earth orbit, the Moon, and Mars. The first stage of the rocket, Super Heavy, boasts 33 Raptor engines producing 16.7 million pounds of thrust. Making it the most powerful rocket booster ever created. The upper stage of the rocket, Starship, is designed to be fully and rapidly reusable and employs thousands of heat shield tiles to protect the stainless steel hull from the intense heat of re-entry. Starship has multiple planned variants. Firstly, they'll have a tanker Starship that is designed to carry propellant into low Earth orbit and dock with another Starship. It'll then transfer that propellant and then it'll return back to the launch site to be refueled and sent up again. The lunar Starship is going to be a variant for the Artemis program. It will have landing legs and it is going to be designed specifically for lunar missions. Astronauts arrive at the Starship in lunar orbit, being transferred from the Orion spacecraft into the Starship. Then Starship will go down to the lunar surface. The astronauts will perform their mission, and then the Starship will return into orbit around the Moon, transferring the crew back into the Orion space capsule, and then that will bring them home. It doesn't need a heat shield or fins because it's never going to re-enter the atmosphere. After returning astronauts to the Orion capsule, Starship makes its way back into low Earth orbit, where it can be refilled again by tanker Starships. After refilling the lunar Starship with propellant, it can make its way back to lunar orbit, where it can wait for the next crew of astronauts to take down to the surface. While SpaceX's goals are amazing, very little has come to fruition. The Starship hasn't made it to orbit yet, and Artemis 3 plans to launch in 2025, giving SpaceX just 2 years. The first challenge that SpaceX is going to have is rebuilding their orbital launch mount. During the first test, the Super Heavy booster managed to dig up about 20 to 40 feet of dirt and spread it all over South Texas. It threw large chunks of concrete all the way into the ocean, meaning that their current design is not suitable for the amount of thrust, heat, and pressure that the 33 Raptor engines puts out at launch. This means that they'll either have to create a more traditional flame diverter, which could take years because of their location on a national wetlands, meaning that the Army Corps of Engineers would need to perform an environmental impact statement and approve SpaceX to be able to dig down into the wetlands. SpaceX's current solution to get around this is to build a massive water-cooled steel plate to sit below the orbital launch mount. While this will definitely hold up better than concrete, it's yet to see if this will still be able to withstand the amount of force and pressure put out by 33 Raptor engines. This solution doesn't entirely work around the regulations, as pumping out that much water could cause damage to the protected wetlands nearby, and so they'll need to find a solution for this, either recapturing the water or working with government agencies. Once they've rebuilt and re-engineered the orbital launch mount, they'll move on to their next challenge, which is going to be getting Starship into orbit and re-entering from orbit. This could take a few different test launches, as the Super Heavy booster has only flown one time, while the Starship has flown 5 times powered and 6 times, including the orbital launch test as unpowered Starship flight. Once they're able to put a Starship into orbit, they'll face their next challenge, which is going to be bringing it back from orbit. The heat shield is really important, and it's something that they still haven't mastered. While they've created a lot of heat shield tiles, their method for securing the heat shield tiles and gluing them to the surface still isn't working out perfectly, as during tests and during the orbital flight tests, heat shield tiles have been lost, and this would most likely cause the re-entry through the thick atmosphere to be catastrophic and destroy the vehicle. So for Starship to be reusable, they're going to need to figure out how to keep those heat shield tiles mounted to the surface of the vehicle through multiple re-entries and launches. Once they've been able to do this, they'll move on to their next task, and most likely one of the biggest tasks of getting Starship to the moon, which is going to be orbital refueling. While NASA has done small-scale tests of orbital refilling and successfully performed it, it's yet to see what challenges SpaceX is going to run into and what solutions that they'll come up with for orbital refueling on such a massive scale. The most likely solution in my eyes is a giant fuel bladder that will take up the entirety of the cargo area on Starship, which can be compressed by gas to push propellant into the lunar Starship. And finally, once they've mastered all this, it's going to be the details of the lunar Starship itself, such as the landing engines that'll be needed to get astronauts to the surface of the moon. Using even one of the 6 Raptor engines on the bottom of Starship against the lunar surface would cause lunar dust to go into orbit around the moon, which could come back around and damage the Starship or hurt astronauts on the surface of the moon or even kill them. And that's why these landing engines, which are about 2/3 the way up the rocket, are extremely important for landing on the moon. One challenge that I could see is pumping enough propellant up from the main tanks into those landing engines, which sit just above the tanks. I think that a tank above the landing engines is most likely, because trying to pump mass amounts of propellant up from the tanks and into those landing engines is going to be an extremely difficult task, and any air bubbles that would be in the liquid would likely destroy the engine that it's going to. For all the challenges that are coming up, I don't think that SpaceX is going to be able to land Starship on the moon in 2025 with Artemis 3. I believe that it's going to hold back Artemis 3 at least a year, but I believe that this delay will be worth it, as the amount of cargo that Starship is able to carry to the lunar surface is exponentially greater than any other available option right now or in 2026. And it'll be really exciting to see how they're able to solve the challenges that I've set out in this video. So thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.